Great. Well, thanks a lot, Tony. I will go ahead and introduce our panelists as well. We have Jeff Huppert, who's Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at connected device software firm SBL. Welcome, Jeff. We also have Darren Fawcett, who's CTO at Pay TV Technology Specialist Pace. And also Alex Ball, who is Enterprise Architect for Customer Premises Software at Liberty Global.
We try. That's right. All right.
Wondering if I should join you or stay up here. I think I may come down and say hello. Okay, so panel on the RDK project and the impacts it will have on the TV industry in terms of giving service providers a competitive edge. So I think this is a good opportunity to discuss the objectives for the RDK, what RDK licensees on the vendor and operator sides are doing with the software, and also how it will shape the pay TV and CPE markets in the coming years. So we'll just do a quick round of introductions just to let us know who you are and where you're from, and then we'll get deeper into the topic after that. So Alex, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Alex Boy. I work for a company called Liberty Global. Liberty Global is really an operator of cable operators, so we operate out of 14 countries with a lot of cable plant in those particular areas. And as part of that job, I've been quite heavily involved in our RDK deployment and looking at the software which runs on all of our embedded platforms. And that includes the set-top box class platforms, as well as looking more towards broadband gateways, where we take those. So we're really happy to say that we are in RDK deployment.
And I'm Jeff Hupperts. I am Jeff Hupperts. I'm with SBL, which is a Ottawa, Canada-based software developer. Our software is all about user experience, developing really immersive user experiences. One of our sets of customers, for example, are several of the leading smart TV manufacturers. Sony, Toshiba, Sharp are all customers of ours that have our software integrated into their smart TVs. But we have as our primary focus the network operator space. We were one of the very first licensees of RDK, and just last month we announced our third major operator customer for RDK, and our second MSO here in Europe that is using our platform.
And I'm Darren Fawcett. I've been with Pace for 15 years on Friday. And I'm pleased to say I've been involved with RDK from inception, and I'm also pleased to say actually that we're suppliers of the technology, the consumer premise equipment to Liberty Global, and also integrators of SBL technology. And so I think what you see, from a very top level is, three key players in the RDK ecosystem. And I think the point being is RDK is an open framework that enables operators to deploy a great service and software vendors to innovate above a certain layer, and for pay TV set-top box vendors to gain scale. And
Great stuff. Well, let's step back a little bit. Darren, I think, kind of outlined exactly what the RDK is, but just for anyone who doesn't know, rather than me describing what it is, we'll turn to someone who's a bit more involved with it. Jeff, maybe you could just give us a brief outline of what the RDK is, who it's for, and how it came about.
Sure. So RDK is an architecture. I've also heard some people describe it as an operating system. I'm not sure if technically that's the proper term for it, but it provides a new platform, if you will, that helps abstract hardware elements. So it allows the software, it allows the operator to develop software that can run across multiple platforms, and therefore gives them a degree of freedom there. It also allows them to select a best-of-breed software that runs on it, gives them a degree of freedom that's important there. And one of the other elements is that those platforms can, as SPL's does, support HTML5 for the actual user interface and other elements of it, so that the operator has control over their user experience to the degree they've never had before. And so for operators like Alex here at Liberty Global, it's a real game changer. It gives them many degrees of freedom that they didn't have before, and they can put together a solution that's very customized for their subscriber base, and one that's differentiated. So they can, once again, I'll speak for you here for a second, Alex, and then turn it over to you. But platforms that can be customized for each different demographic and geographic area that an operator serves, and that can differ the hardware platform over those areas, but they can run essentially the same software for those, and it gives an operator the ability to have that economies of scale, but still be customized for their specific target.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with all of that wholeheartedly, and everything you said on my behalf is great. I think the other thing that we also get from the RDK is it can be described as a SOC abstraction layer, which is great because it kind of physically describes what this software stack does. But I think more than that, it seems to have turned itself into an ethos, so just a way of thinking about software development in the open, about being more transparent, about having a great ecosystem of partners who are able to assist you and also share the same values when it comes to software development. And ultimately, what we're trying to do here is we're really trying to move at web speed. So we're trying to move the platforms that we deploy out faster. We're trying to put technologies as they come off the fabrication plants into the field and where customers can use them and where we can derive some value from that without having hugely long waiting times for development and have some control over their software stacks.
Yeah, I would add to that. What RDK has brought about is a paradigm change in the industry. We've moved from an industry, we have a few incumbent middleware vendors who would provide a very fit-for-purpose middleware for pay TV, linear TV. But what we're seeing is innovation, and the pace of innovation has changed as game changers have stepped into the market based around perhaps IP platforms. And so what RDK brings about is a paradigm change where actually as a pay TV operator, as an aggregator of content, I can deploy a pay TV experience and also innovate at web speed, as Alex pointed out, using an RDK media framework. And so what it's effectively given me is it's pushed the innovation layer higher from above the middleware to that user experience. And I think that's very vital for operators in a world where competition isn't necessarily from other operators in your region, but actually from CE vendors and the like.
I think it's fair to say the project's making some solid progress as well. I mean, I'll share with you some numbers that were just published just within the past few days. The licensees for RDK have grown by more than 60% in the past 12 months, now standing at more than 200. And that includes 25 cable MSOs, satellite operators, and telcos. The rest of those being CE manufacturers, SOC vendors, software developers, systems integrators. And the RDK has been deployed on more than 5 million devices worldwide at this point. So certainly the numbers backing up all of you guys' support for the project. Alex, you referenced at the start about how you're now in Liberty's now in deployment phase for the RDK. So tell us a bit about that in terms of how it's changed the way Liberty approaches cable TV innovation and how it's impacted your rollout of the Horizon project.
So for us, if I look at some of the impacts that the RDK makes, I mean, probably the most obvious ones to point out would be, look at some operators who are using agile and DevOps models in order to develop software, and it seems to be one of the things that comes hand in hand. For us, the progress towards RDK has been, it's been a very interesting path where it hasn't been a huge big bang of change, but we're seeing those changes roll throughout the entire organization. So we're seeing much more freedom in terms of system-on-a-chip porting now. We're seeing huge amounts more transparency and an easier set of fault finding across those platforms as we're able to see what's going into the field. And also we're starting to shift a lot of the function back to the cloud as well. So we're seeing better personalization and a more products development capability within that space. I think it's been a really interesting change across the whole organization. I think it starts with probably architecture and engineering, but now we're seeing interesting new things coming through in tooling and build systems, which are impacting our triage and our testing environments. product are starting to become excited about this now, and new things and new pressures are coming into the whole space. It's just a really fascinating area to have watched.
And Jeff, you also referenced some business that you're doing on the back of RDK, some new business. A major contract with an unnamed European cable operator announced last month. What about your work with the RDK has helped you stand out and get this business?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting working with multiple operators, and it's Alex was pointing out that there are changes in the way that Liberty is operating, and we're seeing this throughout most every customer we're talking to. So in the old paradigm, you had the engineering or technology group at the MSO working with the set-top box manufacturer, and that set-top box manufacturer also incorporated software built into that platform, right? It was their proprietary software typically, and the new model is one, and Alex was pointing it out really well, but so it's not only the engineering or technology group at the MSO, but also their marketing group, or product marketing, if you want to call it that, that's now getting a big involvement, especially around the creation of the user interface, which is part of the user experience, right? And then there's another third party that many operators are adding into the mix too, which are design houses or user interface design experts. And we're seeing this pattern with our customers where they will hire an expert outside firm that has particular competency in designing user interfaces. A lot of times these firms have done it successfully with other devices like tablets and mobile phones, and applying that technology, or applying their expertise in user experience and human behavior. And then you have another third party out there, or multiple third parties for applications, right? Whether it be a local sports team application or weather application, or it could be a Netflix or YouTube, but those are being incorporated into the platform. And so, and of course, then there's the software supplier, the client software supplier like ourselves. So that it went from a very sort of, I'll say, two-dimensional sort of relationship of the operator technology group and just and the set-top box company. Well, those two are still integral elements of the picture, but now there's a whole new set of players. And at the end of the day, the goal is to create this great immersive user experience that really kind of surprises and delights the subscribers, and really makes them want to interact with their service.
Similar experience for you, Darren. Yeah. What do the operators you're working with hope to get out of the project?
Well, I think, yeah, to the statistics you gave earlier and the growth in the RDK, I think there's something like 150 licensees and 15 operators deploying as of the end of, or the beginning of this year. We deal with both European and North American operators, and also Australia operators who are deploying solutions on an RDK type solution. And to the points made, the bring up time for set-top boxes, historically set-top boxes have been, if you open the lid on them, have been 90% similar, but 10% compatible. RDK is moving that dial on the 10%. Yeah. And so actually we're now getting, RDK trunk code that could both work in North America and Europe, which means, in terms of debugging, improving the reliability and everything, we can pass that improvement across all of our operator base with our integration of the RDK. But it also means that operators themselves then have freedom to go and design the UI and the user experience, rather than be too focused on what the middleware is doing and what they need to be, putting in their head end. And, some case studies where, in the past, to change the user interface or the EPG, you were pretty much given what you got from a middleware vendor, and it was generally fit for purpose, it was grid-based. But if I wanted to put a Christmas theme around it, or say a Formula One or a football theme around it to support the World Cup, it would take a change note request and 6 months to get that done. Now I can employ HTML coders who can do that, literally overnight.
And it's helping operators of a much smaller scale, I think, as well. Alex, clearly Liberty is one of the much larger players involved in the project, but Interested to get your take on how smaller players can benefit from the RDK. I mean, is it something that can help them innovate themselves much faster by focusing on the application layer rather than having to follow the lead of larger operators and vendors as they might have done in the past?
So I think one of the really interesting things that's happened in this whole RDK experience has been the emergence of turnkey providers who are putting whole solutions together. So smaller operators can just take something off the shelf and have the entire technology implemented from one end to the other end. And I think from SPL's perspective, that's one of the services that they can provide with large size. We're also seeing from a large operator perspective, but also smaller operators as well, the ability to be able to break that technology down, choose best-of-breed service providers or solution providers to be able to bring that stuff in. And then, I guess the wealth of the RDK is the stuff that we're putting back in. So as large operators are developing new code, the ethos is to put that back into the base code, the trunk, if you like, of the RDK. And we're doing that both with the code that we're developing for ourselves, but also we're looking at taking great code, commercial code, and we're putting it back in, even in situations where we're not using it. So very recently, we put a DVB module in. Liberty themselves don't use in-band DVB SI, but we've put that into the code base because we really want to encourage other operators to take up the RDK, to have things that just work out of the box. We want our application developers to be able to build this stuff and have it work. And I think the most interesting thing for me about the RDK and its next steps will be going beyond cable, going to satellite, going to terrestrial, going to all these different types of IP operators and bringing those guys on board, because I think that's where the volume comes from and the interesting applications get developed. We just keep extending.
Okay. Let's shift the focus a bit to how the project's going to affect the device landscape. We've talked, set-top boxes are very much a focal point, I think, but it's not just for that. I mean, let's Jeff, get your take maybe on how it encourages pay TV services to shift much more to the cloud and the extent to which that might happen. I mean, does it make sense for them to go all the way and do away with set-top boxes altogether, and would it be more efficient to do that, or are there reasons not to, like concerns about bandwidth and things like that? How do you see this issue?
I can tell you that in my upwards of 30 years in this industry, I've since the first day in it, I've heard of people predicting the demise of the set-top box, right? And it's still going strong. Thanks to my colleague here, and as well as many other folks out there. But I think that there's a lot of merit in the network operator having a device that they can deploy in their subscribers' homes that's under their control, and the remote control that's associated with it, having the buttons that they want labeled the way they want them. So there's, I don't think that's going away, even with sort of avant-garde products like Apple TV, right? That comes with a remote control. TiVo comes with a remote control. So the idea that you're going to completely eliminate the box is, I think, at least quite a ways away. But that doesn't mean that the platform can't take different form factors, right? So things like an HDMI stick instead of a set-top, or a set-top that's behind the TV instead of on top or underneath the TV. One that you don't see, or home gateway that is supporting multiple screens in the house, be they TVs or tablets or phones. Those are all relevant and increasingly important platforms. So I think we may not think of it in the same concept we think of as a set-top today, but it's still a platform that the operator will deploy and control. There's a lot of merit to that. That being said, more and more functionality can be put in the cloud or in the network operators' infrastructure, their remote servers. But I don't believe that it's ever going to be nothing in the home and everything in the cloud, because I think that there is some sort of happy medium between having distributed processing and the fact that the microprocessor gets more capable and less expensive over time, because Moore's law, as opposed to putting everything in the cloud. And so I think there's a happy balance, and that balance may shift a little bit over time, but in general, there will always be some value to the operator in having a platform of their own with some processing power and memory and so on. Among other things, for latency. Another element is that if your network does have a hiccup, you still have content, hopefully in a DVR or somewhere in the residence that the subscriber can still get access to some
Can
services.
I add?
That's definitely coming to you next,
Darren,
Darren.
this is your
I'm sure
area.
you have a lot of faith in the future of set-top box.
Yes, I think to the point made as well, I've heard the demise of the set-top box kind of put around the industry for many years by analysts and journal vendors, etc. And I think the fact of the matter is, the set-top box has evolved at quite a considerable pace. When I first was in the industry, standard definition digital TV was the norm. We then got PVR, we then got a HD, we've now got Ultra HD, and we've got media gateways. And to the point made, I think a distributed mechanism. There are some live event TVs that broadcast solutions that I think will continue to be broadcast for many a year because the IP infrastructure simply couldn't cope with it. Secondly, I think there are some functions that are better placed in the cloud. Cable operators have the infrastructure and the capacity to perhaps roll out network PVR. But then you've got hurdles with regulatory issues and that to overcome. So I don't think we're going to see a swap overnight to network PVR, but it is a next step probably in the cable industry. But also to the point made about the demise of the set-top, I think what you're seeing is a greying of the area of what the set-top is. And actually, if you see it as an edge of network device, as a point of integration for service operators, then actually the goalposts are moving. Yes, I need a point of integration to aggregate TV. I need a point of integration to aggregate telephony and data. I also need a point of aggregation to integrate digital services such as medical, health, life, environmental. So the Internet of Things will see yet another, paradigm change in what the set-top box delivers. And I think, service operators are best placed to provide that. It's time and time again, it's been proven that, the consumer is prepared to pay for premium video and good quality video that's reliable and robust. And I think we'll see perhaps, the set-top in terms of what it's defined as grey into perhaps more of a gateway. And RDK has evolved. RDK now as a solution called RDKB, which is RDK broadband, and that's designed for gateways. So I think, that's my position is we'll see the set-top evolve and RDK is evolving with it. So.
I was just going to come to the RDKB that you mentioned. That's something that presumably is relevant to you, Alex, as a deployer of a gateway product like Horizon. Is it something that you see as important to helping you shape the future of that product?
So I'll sort of switch hats. So I can talk from an RDK community perspective on the RDKB in terms of the RDKB for Liberty Global. It's still very much a very interesting development from the RDK. We've not committed to doing that, so just to make that very, very clear. But in terms of where the home is evolving to, in terms of the types of devices that we're shipping into customers' homes today, it's becoming more and more important to be able to control that environment, to be able to deliver the streams which are now coming quite often over IP as well as the QAM-based video delivery mechanisms, better control the quality of the experience within the home. And a big part of that is to be able to control the gateway elements as well as the video elements. So from our perspective, RDKB offers a huge amount of potential in order to be able to control the quality of the experience, better delivery over IP, interesting new services like the Internet of Things coming in and how you manage those software stacks on the box, bringing gateways to market faster in the same way that we're seeing some of the advantages of RDKV. There are a whole host of advantages there, but it is a significant shift in the way that we work today. So it's a very interesting area.
We're coming up to about 6 minutes left or so. I'm going to throw it out to the audience if we have any questions from anyone for our panelists. Well, I'll throw one at anyone who cares to take it. I mean, clearly we've talked a lot about the benefits of RDK in terms of the speed or the speed of innovation it offers. But on the point of speed of adoption, it has been rejected by some notable vendors. One I saw describing it as a very small piece of an extremely complex puzzle, leaving a lot more to define, build, control, and support on top, all requiring a lot more costly and time-consuming work. So, I mean, what would you say to the question that is it actually more straightforward for an operator to go with a vendor partner that has developed its own full CPE and middleware stack? Is there a lot of credence to that point of view?
I don't mind answering first. So, I mean, to the point made, I think, if you looked at what RDK 1.0 was and look at what RDK 2.0 was and what 2.1 will be, it's come a long way. And in fact, I think the industry needed that scale play. We've got frameworks out there such as Android, you've got HBBTV, you've got RDK. I think they all, to an extent, deliver a very similar framework for you to build around. I think the point is the building around of it and the application framework that other vendors can provide improves the user experience from what you would have got, say, a year ago, 2 years ago, and also gives you a platform that you can innovate further on. So I can future-proof myself. We're deploying solutions that are local PVR today. They will support network PVR tomorrow. We're deploying solutions that are HTML UI today. They'll support multiple HTML applications tomorrow. So, I think that's what the platform brings you that perhaps the legacy platforms didn't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, I'll just jump in there as well. So I think that when you look at some of the successes of the RDK and you look at the different parts of the ecosystem that are coming through, so we know for the RDK that all the major SOCs are covered in terms of providing core drivers and features and functions for this platform. We know that we have a great set of application vendors sitting on top of it. I think 220 was the last number of partners that I saw, growing 60-odd% in the last year. We are seeing a huge take-up of this, and we're just seeing things which are being delivered into the ecosystem which make the whole process of getting this on platforms a lot easier than it has ever been before. So I think if you're a monolithic software provider and you're throwing things at this solution, you have to bear in mind just the sheer gravity that the RDK is pulling with it at the moment, and it's a very interesting proposition for MSOs because you instantly get a huge swathe of different SOCs you can use with applications which are being developed and providers who really understand this thing, and also providers who want to work in the open, who want to be able to develop in very agile ways, and it is intentionally leaky as an abstraction layer. It's designed to be that way. It's not designed to be completely closed. And the great thing about that, especially if you're a Liberty Global and you have all these different regionalization differences, is that we can customize various elements of the stack in order to meet those requirements. And the modules we can take and leave, and if it's network DVR, or if it's a service that doesn't require QAM front end, we can take those things out, and that's a really interesting proposition as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would add one, actually a couple of quick things here to your question, Ted. One is anytime that you're taking on a new sort of architecture or environment, there's always some overhead that has to go into it. For creating the core elements of it, getting people to agree on a common set of language and libraries and so on, and approaches, a way of doing things. Well, we're past that sort of stage now, well past it in RDK, right? And we're at the point where we're actually, the rubber's hitting the road, we're getting a real payback for our investment up front. So yeah, I think that comment, the question that you were referring to earlier, might have been relevant a year or two ago when we'd already, as a community, put in a year and a half of effort and didn't have any real things to show for it yet, because you have to put in that overhead up front to do the greater, create this greater community effort. But now that we're getting the payback that Alex is just showing. And we as an industry need this. Listen, you look at people lining up for the newest S6 from Samsung or the iPhone 6 or 7, people are enamored with those platforms. And it's not because of the hardware platform. The hardware platform is a piece of electronics. It's a user experience that they really are enraptured with, right? And so we as a community here have to be able to offer our subscribers a really compelling, immersive user experience on the par of an Apple or a Netflix or Amazon experience. And if we don't, then we're not going to be successful in the long run. So this is our chance to really do it, and I'm a believer that RDK is an important part of that.
I think that's a nice closing comment, sort of forward-looking statement for the pace of the industry. We're just about out of time, but I'll give one last chance maybe for the audience to come up with any questions you have for our panelists. And if not, please join me in thanking them for joining us.